The Macintosh, Apple's Revolutionary Computer, by Jason Chang. The Apple Macintosh 128K was designed to be an easy-to-use, affordable computer containing a mouse, a menu bar, and a click-and-drag feature. Two masterminds behind the Apple Macintosh 128K were current Apple CEO Steve Jobs and Jeff Raskin, Apple's 31st employee. The Macintosh 128K introduced some features that we still use today, such as a mouse, a click-and-drag feature, and a start menu. Some of these items have been improved, but we still use them today in our everyday lives. Today, creation of the Macintosh is credited to Steve and Paul Jobs, the leader of the Macintosh project. The founder of the Macintosh project, however, is Jeff Raskin. However, to this day, Steve Jobs is credited as the creator of the Macintosh. Stephen Paul Jobs was an orphan adopted by Paul and Claire Jobs of Mountain View, California in February 1955. A few years later, Stephen Jobs moved to Palo Alto, California, near what is now known as Silicon Valley because of its abundance of silicon chip manufacturers. At Palo Alto, he attended Homestead High School. After completing high school, Steve Jobs went to Portland, Oregon to register in Reed College, which he then dropped out of after one semester. He still hung around campus for around a year taking classes in philosophy. He also took a course in calligraphy, which he said if he had never dropped in on that course, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or properly spaced fonts. In summer of 1974, Jobs returned to California and began attending meetings of the Homebrew Computer Club with Steve Wozniak. He took a job at Atari, a manufacturer of popular video games, as a technician. At this time, it was discovered that a slightly modified toy whistle could reproduce the 2,600 Hz supervision tone used by AT&T and allowed free long-distance calls. He went in business briefly to sell these blue boxes with Steve Wozniak. Even though the illegal blue box idea was short-lived, Wozniak and Jobs both decided to stay in the electronics business. Wozniak and Jobs designed the Apple I computer in Jobs' bedroom, and they built the prototype in Jobs' garage. Jobs showed the machine to a local electronics equipment retailer who ordered 25. Jobs received marketing advice from a friend who was a retired CEO from Intel, and he helped them with the marketing strategies for selling their new product. Jobs and Wozniak had great inspiration to start a computer company that would produce and sell computers. To start this company, they sold their most valuable possessions. Jobs sold his Volkswagen microbus, and Wozniak sold his Hewlett-Packard scientific calculator, which raised $1,300 to start their new company. With that capital base and credit begged from local electronics suppliers, they set up their first production line. Jobs encouraged Wozniak to quit his job at Hewlett-Packard to become the first vice president in charge of research and development of the new enterprise. And he did quit his job to become vice president. Jobs came up with the name of their new company, Apple, in memory of a happy summer he had spent as an orchard worker in Oregon. For a few years, Apple computers were the most popular computer with the industry, with a growth curve like a straight line north with no serious competitors. From 1978 to 1983, its compound growth rate was over 150% a year. Then IBM introduced its own PC and passed Apple in dollar sales after 2 years. IBM's dominance had made its operating system an industry standard which was not compatible with Apple's products. Jobs knew in order to compete with IBM, he would have to make the Apple compatible with IBM computers and needed to introduce new computers that could be marketed in the business world, which IBM controlled. To help him market these new computers, Jobs recruited John Sculley from Pepsi-Cola for a position as president at Apple. Jobs enticed Sculley to Apple with the challenge: if you stay at Pepsi, 5 years from now, all you'll have accomplished is selling a lot more sugar water to kids. If you come to Apple, you can change the world. Jobs in 1981 introduced the Apple III, which had never fully recovered from its traumatic introduction because Apple had to recall the first 14,000 units to remedy design flaws, and then had trouble selling the re-engineered version. Another Apple failure was the mouse-controlled Lisa, announced to stockholders in 1983. It should have been a world beater because Lisa was the first personal computer controlled by a mouse, which made it have a user-friendly interface but an unfriendly price of $10,000. The worst thing about Apple's development of computers was they lacked coherence. Each of Apple's 3 computers used a separate operating system. Steve introduced the Macintosh to compete with IBM's computers and in turn make Apple's new computers a success. He tried to bring back the old garage shop days in which the company's highly entrepreneurial spirit could be shown. The 2 managers of the Macintosh project were Steve Jobs and Jeff Raskin. Jeff Raskin introduced the project under the name Macintosh after his favorite type of apple, the Macintosh. One of the Macintosh's most distinguishable features is its one-button mouse. Much more impressive and efficient than the common 3-button mouse, it was first used in the Lisa, but got its first big breakthrough in the Mac. Another one of the Macintosh's distinguishable features is its 128 kilobyte hard drive. It had almost double the memory of the normal IBM hard drive and outperformed the IBM in every way. Another one of the Macintosh's distinguishable features is its graphic user interface. Much more efficient than the text line function, a graphic user interface incorporates icons where you have to click on an icon to open up a task. We still use the graphic user interface in modern computers instead of the inefficient text line function. In January of 1984, the Apple Macintosh was introduced to the world. It sold for $2,495 for its 128 kilobyte memory. When it ships, the front side of the box shows the Macintosh. The side of the box shows a Picasso-inspired drawing of the Macintosh. The strategy Jobs used to introduce the Macintosh in 1984 was, simply put, radical. The Macintosh, with all its apparent vulnerability, was a revolutionary act infused with altruism, a technological bomb throwing. When the machine was introduced to the public on Super Bowl Sunday, it was, as Apple chairman Steve Jobs described it, kind of like watching the gladiator going into the arena and saying, "Here it is." The commercial had a young woman athlete being chased by faceless stormtroopers who raced past hundreds of vacant-eyed workers and hurled a sledgehammer into the image of a big brother. A transcendent blast, then a calm, cultivated speaker assures the astonished multitudes that 1984 would not be like 1984. Macintosh had entered the arena. The entire commercial was based on George Orwell's book, 1984, with ideas such as the Thought Police and the Big Brother. That week, countless newspapers and magazines ran stories with titles like, "What were you doing when the 1984 commercial ran?" In conclusion, the Macintosh has changed almost every aspect of life as we know it today, and will continue to change lives for years to come. For example, every single computer uses a graphic user interface with icons either in a dock or a sidebar. These icons were inspired by the Macintosh's graphic user interface, and now all you have to do is double-click on one of those icons to enter a task instead of having to type in a command on a text line. Also, every computer uses either a 2-button mouse and or a 2-button trackpad. These mice were inspired by the Macintosh's 1-button mouse. These innovations have made it easier for us to work, play, entertain ourselves, listen to music, watch videos, and even access the internet. These icons have changed lives for many years and will keep on changing lives for hundreds of years to come.